Indiana basketball beat Ohio State on Friday night in overtime on the road. That's fine. That's great. But let's be real. That win doesn't do it for me. So we need to talk about more potential names that Indiana could go after as their new head coach.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting because right now new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully you are enjoying a day off on this Monday on MLK Day. So thank you so much for spending a little of your off time with us here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. We're talking more names for Indiana today because the question is, can Woody turn it around? Can Mike Woodson save his job? Maybe. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Is it fair for us to be talking about potential replacements for him? I think it very much is fair because as great as the win was on Friday night on the road at Ohio State, we've got a whole lot tougher games coming, and we'll talk more about that later. So we need to dive into some more names that Indiana should consider if they do move on from Mike Woodson. We had an episode for you on Friday talking about names like Brad Stevens, Bruce Pearl, guys like that, Chris Beard. So go check that out if you haven't yet seen that because we're adding to that list here today. And some of these are names that I already had on my list. Some of these are names that you suggested in the YouTube comments, and some of these are ones that I've kind of seen floating around on social media. And I think it's important for us to start with the fact that there are people that believe, whether they be fans, whether they be opposing fans, whether they be alumni, whatever the case may be, there are people that believe Indiana is not an attractive job. There are people that believe that Indiana is not a destination place to go as a head coach anymore. And I 100% disagree. I mean, to my bones, I disagree with that. Has Indiana been good recently? No, we haven't. Have we had our fair share of really bad coaches and coaching situations? Yeah, we have. Not just Mike Woodson. Seen a lot of people bring up the whole Kelvin Sampson situation. Totally understand, right? We've had our past is not very clean in the 21st century, and we need to get that fixed. We need to get that turned around. But if you find the right guy and if you find the right coach who understands what it means to be an Indiana Hoosier, to be the coach at Indiana, and how historic this program is and what it could get back to, yeah, this is absolutely a destination place for a big-time head coach, which is why I named some of the ones I did on Friday, and it's why I'm going to name some of the ones that I have here today. Same way we did it Friday, we're going to do it again. Pull up a coach, talk about their record, and why they would fit right here. And the first one I thought was fantastic. I thought it was incredible. A great suggestion. Be honest, one that I hadn't really thought about since he's doing so well at Iowa State, a guy that in 9 years of coaching college basketball has a nearly 65% winning percentage, 184 wins, just took his 100th loss this weekend as West Virginia takes down Iowa State. That's right. I'm talking TJ Otzelberger. I like this coach a lot. And again, somebody that I hadn't really thought about because he's just been so dominant here recently at Iowa State. I want you to think about this for a second. He's got Iowa State as a top 5 team in college basketball. Iowa State. Think about if you can do that there in the Big 12, what you could do here in the Big 10, right? His time at Iowa State, 85-37. He's won the regular season conference championship twice throughout his career, 3 times in the tournament as the conference tournament champions. He's made it to the NCAA tournament 5 times where he's got 4 wins in the NCAA tournament, something that Indiana would love to get back and do. And he's still fairly young. He was born in 77. So you bring in somebody that still has coaching life left, right? He still has time to be a head coach. And the dude's a winner. The dude's a champ. He's done it at Iowa State, and he's only going to get better. Imagine if he brought all of that to Bloomington. And that would be my selling point if I'm Indiana. It's like, look, man, you've done great. Iowa State's awesome. We are extremely proud and have noticed what you've done at Iowa State. But imagine what you could do with the resources here, with the fan base, with the money, with the facilities, everything going to you in basketball. You could make it, you could be a Hall of Famer right here in Bloomington. So I love the name. I do. I love TJ Otzelberger. That's one I got from you guys. And I think that's a great suggestion. One that I had on my list that I've seen a couple people talk about. It's a stretch. I'm gonna say that right here and now. This name is a stretch, but I think Indiana should absolutely consider it. And whether he would leave his current place or not, I don't know. We talked about Bruce Pearl from Auburn on Friday. Let's go to his biggest rival in the SEC just across that state in Tuscaloosa. That's right. I'm talking about Nate Oats at Alabama. Would he leave the Crimson Tide? I have no idea. They're paying him a hefty chunk to stay in Tuscaloosa. But you have to look. It's the same sort of comparison to Bruce Pearl at Auburn to Nate Oats at Alabama. He stepped into a program that was worthless. He stepped into a program that didn't care about basketball, to a fan base that didn't even know they had a basketball program. And most teams were like that in the SEC. And all of a sudden, he's turned it around. A complete 180. They're investing money. They have NIL. They have players. And they just made a run to the Final Four. You're talking about a coach that has completely changed the mindset of how a town thinks about their basketball program. You could do that again at Indiana. You could revive it. You could breathe a little life and the fire would come back just like that. And that's what Nate Oats could bring to Indiana. He's been coaching now for 10 years. He has a nearly 70% winning percentage. He was a great coach at Buffalo. Alabama took a chance on him, and he's done nothing but win there, 132-57. He's been a conference champion 4 times in the regular season, 5 times in the conference tournament. He's made it to the NCAA tournament for 7 years, and of course made that run to the Final Four. His coaching style is a little bit different. It is a little bit out there. He is very colorful, very emotional, and Alabama plays a very unique style of basketball where they're going to run and gun. Their defense, questionable, but they're going to shoot a lot of threes, and they've got a lot of talent. Would Nate Oats bring that exact style to Indiana if he were hired here? I don't know. Probably something similar. Would you hate that? Maybe. Would I hate it? Yeah, possibly. But if it works, then it works. And here's the thing about that style. It either works really well and you make a run to the Final Four, or you get blown out on your own floor. Like, there's really no in between here. But again, I want to reiterate, for Indiana, we're kind of desperate. We'll kind of take whatever we can get that's halfway decent right now. And we're not in a spot to be picky. You can't hire a big-time coach like a Nate Oats or a Scott Drew or whoever, and you say, hey, man, you've done a great job, but now we want you to do it this way. No. Indiana's got to hire somebody and let them be the coach. Let them do their thing. And I feel like Indiana does a pretty good job of that, but it has gotten us in trouble, especially with the current situation that we're in, because the coaching style is old. It doesn't work. There's no changes. And it's brought Indiana back a couple of years on the main stage. So, couple of names. TJ Otzelberger at Iowa State and Nate Oats at Alabama. But I'm not done. I've got more names for you that Indiana should consider if they move on from head coach Mike Woodson. And we're talking about those right after this on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Prize Picks. This message is brought to you by Prize Picks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's playoffs or regular season, Prize Picks has made it even easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. And now that it's playing time, there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players. And if your pick hits, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yep, that's right. 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. Look, I was on a roll during the playoffs yesterday for the NFL. Did I win? Some, yeah, I did. And it was awesome. Had Justin Tucker less than his extra points made, tried to get on the Derrick Henry rushing yards, trying to get more on that, just couldn't get the ball to him there down the stretch. But it's awesome, man. Prize Picks just takes it to the next level on the NFL playoffs, and you need to be involved. Now we got conference championship games, and then, of course, the Super Bowl. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers, your daily spot for all things Indiana athletics. Thank you so much for being here. If you are listening on the audio side, whatever platform you may be on, Spotify or Amazon or Apple, however you get us listening to us each and every day, thank you so much for that. And be sure that you have followed us on there. You've got those notifications turned on, right? We had a bonus episode go out Friday night for Indiana and Ohio State basketball. So if you missed that, check it out, but be sure you have those notifications turned on so you never miss those types of episodes. And then for those of you on the YouTube side, if you are not subscribed to the channel already, I ask that you do that. We are continuing to grow. Guess what we hit this weekend? Just take a guess. My everydayers know. Yeah, we're over 4,400 already. So now 4,500, here we come. So thank you so much for doing that, liking the videos and commenting. That helps a ton too, gets it out there for the algorithm on YouTube. Everybody else can find it. So doing all of that is a huge help. So thank you so much for your support, for tuning in, and for helping me out doing all those things. Okay, let's talk some more names for Indiana basketball because, look, I said it in the open, and I'll say it again. As great as it was to see Indiana beat Ohio State on Friday night, that was a big win, given everything going on, given conversations just like this one. That win just doesn't do it for me. Mike Woodson didn't save his job with this win, okay? And I don't think anybody believes that. I don't think he believes that. But it's a win that you desperately had to have because, and you know what? It's unfortunate for Woody when you think about it, because it's a win that nobody gives you credit for, but everybody would have dogged you if you lost. And that's a really tough spot to be in. And that's pretty much where you are over these next couple of games before you get into that brutal stretch, right? You've got your game at Northwestern. I believe that's going to be on Wednesday. And then your game against Maryland, that'll be over this coming weekend. You win those games, it's like, well, yeah, you're supposed to win those games. You're going to be, maybe favored, maybe not, but you're supposed to win. Dude, Indiana was a 7-point underdog at Ohio State on Friday night, and we went in there and won the game. We upset the Buckeyes, but yet not a whole lot of credit is being given to Mike Woodson, and that will be the case against Northwestern and against Maryland before you hit Murder's Row, which we'll talk a little bit more about in just a little bit. So, again, a win over Ohio State, just doesn't do it for me. So I have more names that we can discuss that Indiana should legitimately consider when or if and when they move on from Mike Woodson. We've talked about TJ Otzelberger from Iowa State. We've talked about Nate Oats from Alabama. Now a couple of names that I think are still on the rise that Indiana could kind of go outside the big name bubble and take a chance on. And the first one is Chris Jans, a guy that's coached for 9 years now in college basketball. A 73% winning percentage, was at Bowling Green, was a great coach at New Mexico State, took them to several NCAA tournaments, almost pulled off some big upsets in the NCAA tournament. And because of his success there, Mississippi State down in the SEC has taken a chance on him since then. He is a 5-time NCAA tournament coach. He's got a win in the NCAA tournament. He's got 4 regular season conference titles. He's got 3 tournament titles throughout his time between Bowling Green, New Mexico, and Mississippi State. Again, he's been coaching for 9 years. He's got 200 wins so far and a 73% winning percentage. He hasn't been at Mississippi State very long, 57-30 as of right now. And that's a tough place to win, man. That's a really, really tough place to go and try to turn the basketball program around. But yet, look at what they're doing. They're a top 20 team in the SEC. They're a really, really good place to go. They're a really good team. They're a dominant team. They're one that's going to make the NCAA tournament and have a chance to get some really big wins. But Mississippi State, let's just Say that out loud. You're the head coach in Starkville, Mississippi. Or you could leave and you could come and be the head coach at Indiana in Bloomington, Indiana. I just that jump would just make perfect sense for me. Now, whether Indiana goes after him or not, I don't know, but he needs to be on the list. I'm just telling you, he is going to be a champion somewhere, somehow, someday. Why not make that Indiana? Why not give him the chance to do that right here? I think he's somebody that if Mississippi State has another successful season, other big programs will come calling that need head coaches. And there may not be any bigger than Indiana right now that will need a head coach by the end of the season if the season goes the way we think it will, right? With Mike Woodson eventually probably being relieved of his duties. And so Chris Jans, I think if you're wanting to get away from the Bruce Pearl, Nate Oates, Scott Drew, Brad Stevens type of resume, type of name, right? Status, if you will, then you take that next step backwards, not in terms of talent, not in terms of skill, not in terms of success, just name-wise, name recognition. I think Chris Jans has got to be at the top of that list. I really, really do. I think he is, I don't want to say he's an up-and-comer, but kind of. I mean, he's only been coaching for 9 years, and all he's done is win everywhere he's been. 21-12 at Bowling Green, 122-32 at New Mexico State, and now he's 57-30 in his toughest job yet at the SEC. He needs to be at the top of that list. Another name that I have for you. This one was actually recommended to me, so give credit to the YouTube comments here. He's been coaching for 5 years, has a 67% winning percentage. All 5 years have been at the same school. He's won 2 regular season conference championships and a tournament championship. And in his 5 years has taken this team to the NCAA tournament. Pretty impressive here. We've talked about 2 big coaches from the state of Alabama. How about another one, right? How about Bucky McMillan down from Sanford in Birmingham, Alabama? Big time coach right here. 92-45, Bucky McMillan. He's very young, was born in 83. Talk about an up and comer. Talk about somebody you would have to take a chance on. That's exactly what Indiana would have to do. And there's a big argument right now that we can discuss a little bit more in just a second on what should Indiana do? What should the Hoosiers do? Should you hire an up-and-comer like a Bucky McMillan, or should you try and go after the big-name successful coach and take him from another big program? I think there are arguments and pros and cons to both. I really, really do. I think there are situations that you could be right in both scenarios. But if you go the true up-and-comer route, right, the Buffalo to Alabama route, if you go the New Mexico State to Mississippi State route, Bucky McMillan would be that answer. He would be the guy that you could rely on, who has won early, who's very young. How could he handle the pressure of his first big head coaching job? Well, you just got to figure that out and hope that he figures it out, and that's the gamble that you take. Is Indiana that style of school? Are we that style of program? I don't know. You tell me. Doesn't seem like it, but maybe that's the change that we need. Maybe that's something different to break us out of this rut that we're stuck in, which seems like it's been going on for the past 2 decades. And I think Bucky McMillan could be a very, very good hire. I think as a true up-and-comer, somebody who hasn't coached long, but he's won every year he's been there, this is somebody to look into. Keep Bucky McMillan from Sanford on the top of that list and keep him in the back of your mind a little bit if Indiana does decide to go the up-and-comer route. But can Mike Woodson turn this around? Is it fair to have these conversations, and what will Indiana do? More on that in our final segment right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate. The variety of bets keep every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around for your winnings. You've got them right then, right there. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or you're just looking to add a little extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, final segment right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much for being here, making this your go-to spot, your true first listen or first watch every single day. And to my everydayers, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here once again. I was creating this show today and doing a rundown, doing some research, right, getting everything put together, and I thought to myself, is it fair? Is it fair for us to be having these conversations about Mike Woodson, a guy that's still in the middle of coaching? He's still in the season. We got a long way to go. It is January 20th when this episode comes out. We have almost 2 months of college basketball remaining. Does Mike Woodson survive that long? Does Indiana give him that long? Can Mike Woodson turn it around? And is it fair for us to be sitting here and talking about potential replacements for the active head coach at a college basketball program? In this situation, yes, it very, very much is. It is very fair to have that conversation because how many of you, right? Raise your hand to yourself right now. How many of you have confidence, like enough confidence to put like money on it or your life on it or house on it or whatever? How many of you, raise your hand, if you are confident in Mike Woodson turning this season around? That's what I thought. That right? I mean, nobody has that. And the win on Friday is great. Good. Congratulations. You got a big upset win on the road at Ohio State. Can you do it again against Northwestern? Can you do it again against Maryland? And then can you survive Murder's Row at 17 Purdue, at 24 Wisconsin, home versus 20 Michigan, at number 12 Michigan State, home versus UCLA, and then home versus 17 Purdue? That's going to tell us everything that we need to know. If Indiana goes through there and gets 2 or 3 wins, then okay, maybe you may survive, possibly. I doubt it. But the scenes we saw, not against Ohio State, but the scenes we saw against Illinois, I just fear that that's the true identity of this team. I feel like that's the real way this program is being run right now, where you've got guys who are getting in fights, you've got guys who have no energy, guys who just don't flat out want to be there. Like that can't happen. And that's been happening for quite some time. And I think a coaching change, one that is almost 100% wanted by the fan base, has to happen here for Indiana. And here's the problem. Even if you go on this magical run down the stretch in the Big Ten play, does that really fix anything? Does that really solve anything if you just get hot and beat some big time teams? If you've truly changed within the program, then yes, then that's a good thing. But what have we seen from Mike Woodson that tells us he's going to change? What have we seen from his staff that tells us they have it in them to do the necessary things to win basketball games night in and night out? I haven't seen it. Have you? It's just not there. And so I'm not saying they need to fire him today on this Monday, but it has to, they've got to start having these conversations. And it's a huge thing for me that in sports, if you are going to fire your head coach, you better have replacements in mind and you better have the phone ready to go. And the names that I've talked about today, right? Otzelberger, Nate Oats, Chris Jans, those McMillan, those types of guys, you have to have the phone ready to go to give them a call if you pull the plug, if you pull the trigger and tell Mike Woodson to pack his bags and thank you very much for your service. You have to be ready to go. And I just don't think Indiana can afford to miss again. You can't afford that. Mike Woodson, you thought it was going to work and it just didn't. And you know what? It is what it is. But I've given a big list of names, and there are more that we can discuss that Indiana has the potential to go after. And I refuse to believe that Indiana is still not a destination place for big-time coaches. I refuse to believe that Indiana is not a place that can win national championships in this century. We can do it. We absolutely can. We just got to find the right guy with the right mindset who can get the support, get the money, get the buy-in, and get the players on campus to sign. If you can do those things, Indiana's going to be just fine. And all the names that I've listed, whether it be on Friday's show or on today's show, I believe that they can do it if Indiana decides to move on from head coach Mike Woodson. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you again for being here. Subscribe to our show on YouTube. Comment your thoughts down below. Any names that I haven't talked about that you think Indiana should consider if they do move on from Mike Woodson. Have those notifications turned on. Follow us on your audio platforms, and we'll be back tomorrow, Indiana fans. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.